Welcome to the Florist Table. I'm Yvonne Ashton, and if you've been with us before, you might notice something different today. We've rebranded from Mornings with Mayesh to create a space where florists can pull up a chair and dive into the conversations that matter in our industry. Same great content, new name, and plenty of room to grow. And what better way to launch than with a topic that has the floral world, let's say, divided. Pantone recently announced Cloud Dancer as the 2026 color of the year, a white, not a bold, unexpected color, just white. Some designers are disappointed, others are questioning whether Pantone even matters anymore, and a few are finding creative ways to express their feelings by comparing this uninspiring color to plain toast and deconstructed water. That was definitely my favorite comment that I saw on social media. So I've invited three brilliant designers that you guys can see here to the table to unpack this. Joining me today are Amy Balsters of The Floral Coach, an expert in color theory who can explain what most of us might miss about white. Jodi Duncan, who leads a creative studio and the person behind the toast comment. And Abby Chick of Abby Chick Flowers. She's an educator who actually predicted this choice and predicted last year's color correctly too. All three are past Mayesh Design Stars, which means they know their way around color, design, and making something beautiful out of whatever they're given. Let's talk about Cloud Dancer, whether it's boring, brilliant, or completely irrelevant. Welcome to the Florist Table, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, ladies. So before we get into the questions, I know I did like a very brief introduction, but let's start with Abby, then go to Jodi and Amy. And if you guys could just give me a 1-minute introduction about who you are and how you kind of got to this place where you are at this moment in 2026.
How did I become a tastemaker and trend?
Yes, exactly.
I'm a retail florist, do a little bit of all of everything, retail, funeral work, sympathy, wedding, whatever. I'm in Virginia, and I was previously one of the Mayesh Design Stars. I just got lucky, I think, with some of my insights in the past couple of years. But this is a lot of fun. I don't think anybody takes it too seriously, but I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Abby. Jodi?
I started working in a flower shop when I was 9 years old. I bought it when I was 19, and I'm 54 now. And so I've transitioned through lots of different floral iterations. Now I'm more on the marketing and consulting side. I'm a visual artist, but I work in multiple mediums, and I'm always inspired and driven and opinionated about color. I work with Keith White on his trends report. I sit on that panel. And so I'm always having conversations about color. My background is with Design Master. I started working with them in 2006 and have worked on and off with them on different projects since then. So I've been around the color world for a long time.
I love it. Amy?
I've been a florist. I started doing flowers in 2001 and have, like Jodi, done a lot of work in retail and special events. Now I focus on teaching mostly other florists how to design more efficiently, to better understand how design works so they can be their own coach in their own businesses and say, oh, I can look at this and know what's wrong with it. So I am sort of a self-proclaimed flower design nerd. I just want to go so deep into understanding what makes something good and what makes something not look good. And so trying to parse that out and then explain that back to other designers is really what gets me up every day. And so even though this feels early to me now because I've been sick with the flu for 2 weeks, so I'm like 9:30. Oh my gosh, this is so early.
Yes.
Yeah, so I am I'm just really passionate about let's get into the weeds of what this is and how to better understand it, how to make it work for us and our individual aesthetics and what we're trying to accomplish in our design and our businesses. And so as always, I'm really honored to be here. I appreciate you asking for me to join this awesome panel. It's like, I want to talk about color all the time. So I'm excited to get into it.
I love it.
Us have something in common, which is that like we're not afraid to like chew the fat, to beat a dead horse. Like we will talk to anyone and everyone about this. I called Amy this morning. I was like, get your butt up. It is time to talk.
I love it. Yes, I know. I'm so sorry that it is the 6th of January. It really is the official start of the new year, because who's working before that? But I also was rushing because I was like, oh my God, I have to actually get ready this morning. Can't just, throw on my yoga pants and put my hair in a pony and be done with it. So I feel you on that one, but I'm not sick yet, knock on wood. Hopefully that stays because it is going around.
It's so bad.
I know, it really is. Okay, so Jodi, I just want to start with you had a lot of comments, and I did pick the plain toast and deconstructed water comment. And again, I immediately shared it with my team, who was experiencing a similar reaction. We were literally all dying, and I saw lots of different comments from you, and I was just constantly pinging my team, like, this is hilarious, because your wit is like, oh, amazing. So just, tell us more about that.
Well,
because you went on a rant, girl.
I did.
Yes.
Because like what Amy said, I want to get off in the weeds, and I could talk about color from morning till night. And so context for my snark and humor. I love when they announce this every year, and I love that it comes during December and right before Christmas. And ever since I can remember when social media became a thing, and then they could announce it and you didn't have to read it like in the newspaper or in a magazine.
Right.
But now they have it online. And so I set my alarm, and I am like, I want to be the first one to hear it from the horse's mouth, what it is. So I'm like all curled up, and I have a Pantone mug, and I'm sitting in my little apartment, and I'm texting my friend Gretchen Sell, and of course she's all the way on the East Coast, and she's the design master queen. And I'm just like, da, 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 da. And then I'm like, what? And so the deconstructed toast and water is because I was looking at like my and that's where that came from, because in that moment I was holding my Pantone mug that I have, my Pantone merch, because I love some good Pantone merch, and I'm drinking from my mug, and I'm like, they're not going to need a mug this year, because you can go to any diner and get a white mug. Like, go to any diner and steal your white mug, and you've got your merch. And so yes, I was on a rant. Sorry, not sorry. And I don't know why I'm funny. People are like, could you do stand-up comedy? And I'm like, probably. Maybe that's another career I could do too. But anyway, that was the backstory for deconstructed water and white toast, or I don't even remember what I said.
Yes.
I took it very personally, and I was upset. I'm not kidding. Now I'll snark, and I went back to bed. Like by 10:30, I went back to bed and pulled the cover over my head.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, I was, if you want to call it triggered or whatever, I don't know. I was like, so that's the backstory on whatever, on my comments and on my snark. That was where it came from, because I was literally drinking water and eating toast and drinking from my Pantone mug going, well, I'm not going to buy one of these because it's a white mug. You can get this anywhere.
Indeed.
So that was where that comment, that was the context of that. And then I just went with it off into the weeds, like I said.
Yep. And I enjoyed every moment and every piece that I saw. So thank you.
I appreciate that.
I'm sorry. I feel bad because I was enjoying your misery, honestly.
I was just like, you can't make this stuff up. White? Really? That's what we're doing? That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Yes. And exactly what my team was. And, we always do a poll, right? And just to give you some context, like when I was cheering at WSFA, I used to write like a blog every year for about the Pantone color of the year. We have someone doing it now on our blog. Val does it, I think, this year and the past few years. And, we always try to relate it to the floral industry, and we have this kind of love relationship, and look, it's just something to look forward to, right? Nothing too serious. And then we saw that. And honestly, we've been disappointed in the past few years in their selections. But, when we did the poll on Instagram, literally everyone was like, green, it needs to be some sort of green. And, we haven't had a green in a long time. And then we got like,
And then not.
Yeah.
And then
so,
womp womp.
so Abby, I want to hear from you, obviously, because you predicted that it would either be white or beige. You also, as you said, guessed last year's color correctly.
Mhm.
What made you see this coming? Like, how did you know that this was going to happen? And, tell us more about that.
How messy do you want me to be in my response?
I want you to be really messy, girl. I want this to be fun. I'm like enjoying this panel. I feel like I need to have a panel all the time when I'm doing these things.
Okay. There is a method to my thought process, which I think pretty much aligns with what we've been told, which is that when I looked at last year's color, I thought it has to be sort of the opposite of that, the antithesis. And it was, subdued and kind of rich and muddy. And so it needs to be totally opposite. So I was thinking, okay, what is opposite of brown? Like dirty, it's got to be clean, it's got to be crisp and fresh and bright. So I thought it's either going to be like a white or a neon orange or something like that. Like, how do you go on the total other end of the spectrum from that? And then I'm like, but it's probably, they're going to do something totally tone deaf and choose like white, because
Yep.
certainly in the current culture, no one would assign malice to anything like that.
Never, ever. What are you talking about, Abby?
Which, you know what I mean? Like,
I love that Amy is on mute and she's just cracking up.
I know she's this. I've talked to Amy. Like I said, I'd love to beat a dead horse. I've talked to my good friend, Sue McCleary. She said, and I said, I'm using this on the podcast. She said, do we think it's intentional? Who can say? But it's salt in the wound white is what it is right now. It's like you guys are a major organization, and there wasn't anybody in the room in any meetings that said, one thought, it might not be the best choice in this time that we are currently, but I do think, to be fair, we are culturally right now, and especially, online culture, everyone, because we're all perpetually online. We're going to assign meaning and malice to just about anything. I don't think we are living in a time where we could choose a color and not have somebody saying that this is why this was selected and this is why it's problematic. And, and to be just quite fair, I don't know that the four of us, four white women are necessarily the people to crack the code on this one either, or say what it means or what they were thinking, and how this makes other people feel, but did I absolutely yeah, it's just kind of like, gosh, I wish you maybe would have just ran one more focus group before announcing, maybe one more.
Call us.
Yeah.
Call us.
We'll
I
fix
say
it.
that there's so many times where I'm like, they obviously don't have a team like mine, because I say that so many times. I'm like, they just need us, is what they need. Right?
Yeah. I mean, last year we were joking in how I guessed it. I said, well, it's going to be very Kardashian. It's going to be a very Skims color. Like, we're going to pull one of the lines for, the Skims palette and choose that. Like, that just felt, very much where we were in the time. And I don't know that Pantone, well, we can get into, we're going to get into
We're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Amy.
That's essentially how I arrived at it.
I love it. I love it. Amy, what were you thinking when you first saw the announcement?
I was just observing the absolute unraveling in the floral industry about this. And I was disappointed. I thought, I get that white is a color. It is absolutely a real color. So Pantone has every right to choose what a color that they determine is going to be influential. But as a designer, as a floral designer, I think we're so tired of using white, especially if you have been doing this a long time. You've kind of done a lot of whites and you've done a lot of iterations of white. And it's like, when you've been doing flowers a long time, you crave novelty. At least I do. And I crave trying something different and stretching myself and pushing myself. And so, like Abby said, we're going to get into the weeds more about this, but, I think there was general disappointment in the floral industry because we know how on the nose white is. Everybody knows white. We all use it. We all have to use it against our will. Sometimes, just
Right.
a little pop of color, a little contrast here would just, and it's like, no, I just want all white. You're like, oh, so there's a disgruntling here that makes sense to me as a florist. We don't, I think, become florists to just do white hydrangea balls. Some people do, but you see it once and you're like, it's beautiful for what it is. But like, where do you go from there around white? It doesn't feel like a challenge. So at least from a color perspective. However, as we'll get to later, it actually is a huge challenge, I think, to work with white well. And so I'm looking forward to talking more about that. But yeah. Just general disappointment, I think, across the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just feel like, for me, the color of the year is supposed to be inspiring and something to look forward to, where, like, even just in if you're looking at interiors and design, everything was white and gray, and that's already been done, and now people are already moving away from that. So it's like, how is that inspiring and creative? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, Amy, also, can you just, for florists, again, that are rolling their eyes at just another white, can you break down what makes Cloud Dancer different from other whites, and what could we understand about warm, cool whites? Warm versus cool whites is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
not coming out correctly.
I'm really glad you asked. That's okay. It's still early for us. It's still early, even on the East.
Early.
Yes. So this is such an important question. I'm really glad you asked it, because this is a conversation about temperature. And having gone to floral design school, I've talked about this a lot in my classes and in color presentations, but I went through very formal training, and I never really one time heard a teacher explain temperature in a way that ever made sense to me until about 3 years ago, when I launched my own deep dive into explaining color theory better to florists. That was a mission I had. And so in order to better understand it myself so that I could better teach it, I really dove into temperature. And so let me explain a very high level here, because I know color theory can get so dense and so meaty. And I just want to keep this very high level. But essentially, temperature, we use these words warm and cool. But what they actually mean is that warmth typically has this undertone of warm colors, i.e. typically yellows, right? Cool has more cool undertones, meaning blues, purples, etc., violets. So when we talk about temperature, you can see them obviously on the sides of the color wheel. You have red, oranges, and yellows. You have greens, blues, and violets. But we also have to acknowledge that every individual flower and every individual hue has its own temperature as well. So for example, every red can be a combination of warm and cool, but it can also lean very, very warm, and it can lean very cool. Well, this is a very important idea to understand around white, and in part because we have to balance warm and cool whites when we are building with other color, but also clients have very specific understandings of a white. And the difference of Cloud Dancer is that according to Pantone, they say that Cloud Dancer is a combination of warm and cool. However, it leans more creamy, meaning it means more warm. They didn't want to lean cool. This is on their notes. They didn't want it to feel stark, clinical, or icy cold. Think of LED lights, how they have an undertone of blue, and incandescent lights have an undertone of yellow. And so I do think it's important that they didn't choose a cool white. They chose a warmer, creamy white, and that temperature is going to shift depending on what's around it. And so that's the core difference of Cloud Dancer, is that we have to understand the difference between warm and cool. And as we get into our conversation later and talk about how to work with this particular white, we can better utilize it by understanding the temperature of other flowers as well. So I think that's the main difference.
Question. Don't you feel like with their hero image, the announcement, all of the blues, that so many people are going to interpret it incorrectly because they're going to be like, ooh, it's a cool white?
Yes. I think that's absolutely confusing, because the photo is literally this person walking through a cloud. And oftentimes when you look up at the sky, you are seeing very cool colors. You're seeing a lot of blue. Now, in the sunsets and the sunrises, we see more warmth and yellow, but the daytime option they chose is all icy blue. So they say it's cream, but that's not really the pictures we've been seeing on it. So yeah, I think it's really interesting, the imagery they chose. And like you said, is it that deep? And then it is that deep. It's like, where are we at in the depth of this? I don't know. It's hard to know what was behind their thoughts on this,
I was so mad. I thought the same thing that you just said, Abby, but I thought, now, Jodi, you're just being bitter. You're just being ugly. You're just, you let it go. Nobody is thinking that much about it. But I thought the same thing, and then I dismissed it. I'm like, girl, you got to let it go. You're being bitter. You're taking this too far. But then you thought the same thing. So I'm like, I knew it.
Yeah.
So when I'm done beating the horse with all of my friends, I think I'm just driving and thinking about it. So I'm telling you, it is that deep.
And me too.
I'm always willing to believe that I'm wrong, or I don't have all of the information, quality I wish more people possess. No, but I'm like, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. And I've come to a place where I'm like, white is fine. I asked my 7-year-old this morning, I was like, so I'm going on this podcast, and she's very much in her crafter art era. And she goes, oh, I love white. And I was like, you do? Why? Tell me. So what can I, gather from you? And she's like, oh, I love how when you have like a darker color and you put white over it, it gets lighter. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's fantastic. But I think what I noticed as I was driving, I was like, I'm trying to give it a chance, and I'm like, it really does. Like, I'm looking at buildings or, a sign, and I'm like, other colors show up because of white. Because look at the way that all 4 of us are framed. We're framed in white, so that we are really highlighted.
Yes.
So are we maybe being bitter Bettys here, when really it's like, maybe white deserves, like, it's been an unsung hero for the supporting, it's the best supporting actress. It's like, everybody's like, oh, you guys missed the point. It should have been chartreuse, because what we're seeing are these like artful modern form bouquets, and everybody's using like white with the chartreuse and the green. It should have been the green, but maybe it's like, well, the green, if it wasn't paired with white, everybody would focus on the other color that it's paired with. Maybe white does allow us. Are you snapping for me? Maybe
I love that you're playing devil's advocate. This is great.
You have to, right? You really have to. So I don't know. And like at the end of the day, sometimes I'm like, it's fine. It's easy. And gosh, don't we need just like one thing to be easy? And so I'm like, when I'm here at the shop and I have nothing left in my creative bank, I'm like, I have to make a funeral piece to make it look impressive. All white is timeless, elegant, and always looks the money. So it's like,
it's a reset. White is a reset.
It is. It's a palette cleanser.
Palette cleanser. I love that. Okay. Something to think on, Abby. Thank you.
One of us had to not be a hater. I was like, all right, I drew the short straw. I'll say something nice about her.
Very good.
I think that everything that you said is really good. It's not like virtue signaling or whatever. It's honest, like it's an honest conversation. But Pantone is a color company. That's what they sell is color and the components to color, to automotive, to health and beauty, to fabrics, fashion, everything, print. But the one thing that I think it has done is made you not look at color. It's made you go, okay, what else can if everything's white, what do we notice more? What other elements and principles of design do we notice more? Do we start to notice texture? Do we start to notice, what other things do we notice? Because if white is uninspiring, then what happens when white is on a surface, whether it's a flower, a fabric, a graphic design, your printer ran out of ink, that's white, hello, like seriously. But I think white, you can do things with textures that you can't do with something that has a lot of color. Now, monochromatic things you can, but if you have color and you have a lot of texture, it starts to look like clown vomit, or it can if you don't understand how to balance that. And color has visual weight. And as designers, whether you're working in interiors, graphics, flowers, whatever your medium is, you understand that color has visual weight and it becomes a focal emphasis. Well, guess what? We don't have that. We don't have that with that, unless it's the balance of the use of color. But we don't have visual weight with white. It doesn't have any. It's a cloud. There is no weight. So what do? You get, like Amy said, we got to get real creative with figuring out, okay, what can we put white on? What surface can we put white on that's disruptive, artful, interesting, like you said, has a novelty? So I would be like, okay, what if you paint a piece of leather leaf white and just have a few of those in there? Leather leaf isn't white. What if you paint a stem of gladiolas, all white gladiolas in a clear glass vase, and you paint all those stems white? What? They're not supposed to be white. So how can you apply white to a surface that is disruptive, interesting, or causes people to go, what? Because white doesn't make people do that. So we have to be clever about how we apply it to different surfaces.
I don't know if you guys remember, I think that's a really interesting point, Jodi, is Putnam and Putnam, the old Putnam and Putnam, like several years ago, did this whole series where they painted before, there was a lot of outcry, outrage about this, but it was really popular, where they did this monochromatic series of these very interesting sculptural pieces, and every single element was painted the exact same color. So the grapes they used, the flower they used, the pot they used, the background they used was all sort of this, raspberry color, or this interesting teal undertone, muted teal. And then they would photograph it in this, of course, really interesting artistic way. And these were, so viral. They went crazy. I think among many things that Putnam and Putnam had done, this is the one thing that stood out for me that was just like, oh, you see that image, that's Putnam and Putnam. Well, when they did this in whites, it was like incredible. I saw this not that long ago with a very influential designer who painted everything whites and did these incredible tablescapes, and there was just a few pops of red anthurium on the table. And I think there's a lot to be said for what you just shared, Jodi, around, we might be seen as just like, hey, we want the work done for us. Okay, there's a color, I'll buy the ribbon, I'll buy the pots, I'll buy the flower. And white sort of forces your hand of reevaluating how you have to use that to be competitive and interesting and artistic. And if we're honest, maybe that just feels like more work. And it maybe just feels like, really? I got to do more now to like make myself stand out. I couldn't just, like you said, throw some chartreuse flowers, Abby, just follow the trend and make it interesting. But somebody could really set themselves apart by interpreting this in a very artistic way and using it to stretch themselves creatively. And I think that's the beauty of the floral industry and all the new talent that we have coming into the floral industry, is that you have all these fresh, new, interesting perspectives on things like white. So I think that's very, very well said.
I'm curious about what you guys think, because there is talk that Pantone is becoming irrelevant to florists in general, but also just as a whole, just because a lot of people feel like they're just really off the mark, especially the last few years. So do you guys think Pantone is irrelevant to florists or as a whole? And part of me wonders, and I did see, like, they knew this was going to be controversial. Do they know that they are becoming irrelevant and that's why they're doing this? And look at us, we're sitting here having a whole conversation about them.
I'm like, is this PR? Is this, they're like, you know what really works? Rage bait. And
Yes.
we are absolutely going to, I mean, again, I think we shouldn't, as a people, I think we could all really work harder to just not assume the worst, you know, assign so much malintent. But
they said that there was a woman that came on and said, we knew this was going to be controversial. They came out and said that after all the controversy.
It's marketing. It is sheer marketing, because as they said, there's no such thing as bad PR. And I understand the sentiment behind that statement, but also people have an expectation from Pantone to be inspiring, to be the thought leader, to be the think tank. And instead of being the think tank, the rest of us are asking, what are you thinking? So I haven't done this, but I want to go to their website and go, this is our core value. This is what we believe. Because have they strayed from it? I don't know. I feel like they have. But have they? I don't know I don't know. Do they need to do a SWOT analysis and go, you guys, you've got to get back to our core. But also, one of the things that I noticed that annoyed me was they kept talking about our sponsors, our partners, our sponsors, our partners, our sponsors. And I'm like, money, 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 money.
Right.
And I
starts
understand
raising eyebrows.
I am capitalist right here. Okay. I'll take it, whatever. I understand profitability. I understand the trade. I understand being a businesswoman. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 15 years old. I get it. But it's like, are they bending over to satisfy whoever their sponsors and partners are? Because it's like, oh, we have Post-it note and Scotch as a partner, and they have white Post-it notes.
Like, cool.
But there was a lot of reference to that. And I thought, I don't remember that as much in the past as I did this year.
Right.
I didn't remember the references to this brand and that brand and this brand and that brand. I'm like, can we just make it about the color?
Did they come up with the color and then they like feathered their nest of like, okay, let's gather all the white things we can find so that we can really make this feel like this actually is a trend. Watch, it's happening. And see, I have all of these examples. Like,
right. I mean,
you know?
I just want it to be about the merit of color.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want virtue signaling. I don't need a therapist. I have one. Thank you. I need to talk about color, the merit of color, the art of color. I'm a docent at a museum. I'm a lifelong artist in so many different mediums. Can we just talk about color? I don't want to talk about this happened. I understand those cultural things and I get it, but I feel like we've made it too much about not color. Yeah. I'm like Amy, I want to talk about the theory. I just want to talk about what color does in our lives. And I understand that culturally it does things and it has implications and there are nuances and I get it. But nobody wants to go, what protest t-shirt are we wearing today? I'm wearing the protest of Pantone white today. That's what my protest t-shirt is. Can we just make it about the color? Just the merit of color. just, can we do that? I don't know that we can. We always have to build it and validate it for all these other reasons that may or may not have anything to do with color.
I think for me, to answer this question, it really, I think we just have nothing to do with this. I think every year this comes out, and, I know florists, I love what Sweet Root Village does. They're friends of mine here in Virginia, or friends of ours. And they do a huge party. It's a great marketing event. They do a huge party for all the planners in the area. And it's a fantastic way to bring them in. It's fun. Everyone's excited about this party because it's a reveal of the color. They paint this huge wall of the color, and they bring in all the flowers of that color, and they host a flower arranging party, which, by the way, if you don't do something like this in your town, what a way to stand out and invite vendors into your space. And it's just genius level marketing. So I immediately thought, oh yeah, they're gonna, like, kind of boring, but like, we're in DC. Like, this is a very classic type of place. People do a lot of white weddings here. There is a lot of hydrangeas. There is a lot of roses. People want a very classic aesthetic in Washington, DC on the East Coast. This is not New York City. This is not the West Coast. And so we're used to this. Like, this is a very common request here. And I think that it's easy for me to feel like, oh God, now what am I going to do? Because it's like, oh, wait, what a, like, non-starter. And at the same time, every year I have the same conversation with friends about this. Like, this has nothing to do with us. We were not in the room. We were not a consideration. We're at the very bottom of the food chain when it comes to how these designs are set, these trends are set. They're looking at industry, their fashion, like you said, car colors and print. There's these huge industries with billions of dollars that they are influencing, and it trickles down into, fashion and interiors. And we kind of are like at the very bottom rung of the consideration. That's just the reality of the size of our industry as it relates to other industries. And so I think, it's easy to feel like, oh my God, like, oh, great. But at the same time, if you guys have really beautiful backgrounds, have you noticed my home?
Yeah. I mean,
my house, like, I have colorful art. It's all muted. Like, I don't have this kind of, like, need for having this certain thing be something, because at the end of the day, like, we weren't in the room. We weren't even on their mind to say, I wonder how this is going to influence floral trends. We're just not. In fact, even the Benjamin Moore stuff, I think affects us more. The Benjamin Moore color of the year feels more aligned for me I think because of how tonal it is, it affects more of the flower decisions. But I also just want to say the Pantone thing is, we don't operate in trends year to year. If you live in the middle of the country, like, I was in the middle of the country for Christmas. I walked into so many little shops that had dried flower bundles. I'm like, this was dead 3 years ago at Anthropology. We're not doing this anymore. But it is for them. It is for the middle of the country. They're still doing.
It just now came here. Right. Yeah, drieds are huge in the Midwest.
Right.
Huge.
Exactly.
Huge.
So these trends don't.
I mean, I'm in a flyover state. So drieds are huge here.
Right. And so we don't operate in 12-month trend cycles like Pantone. So we're operating in, I grew up on the West Coast and I ended up on the East Coast, and I would see what was very popular in Southern California, in Los Angeles, was not happening until sometimes 6 to 7 years later in other places. So I think also within the Pantone thing, it's easy to get like all revved up about this, but right now, color drenching in Mocha Mousse is like what I'm seeing on all my favorite Instagram influencer homes. They're color drenching top to bottom in these beautiful cinnamon browns, moody. They're not going to paint that over in white because Pantone launched Cloud Dancer. Like, the way these trends move is nebulous, and it's social media, and it's those stretches are longer. And so I think there's this idea that there's this panic, and we have to, it's a Ralph Lauren Christmas, and everything has to be red and green. It's more, it's stretched than that. You know, it's more personal. It's cultural. It's little pockets of these areas that are influencing different trends. So I think there is this kind of like panic. Okay, we're told to respond to this. Now's my reaction to it. And it's like, well, that's not really how it even works within trends within different communities. So be and like have a fun conversation about it. But ultimately, Pantone is never going to influence the floral industry in the way that we think it should, maybe, but it just isn't. I don't think that's living in reality, right? Like,
Yeah.
Clearly I have strong thoughts about this.
No, and I mean, for us, it was funny. It was like I think in like a 3 month, because we'll do walk-in bouquets, a la carte stuff, like aside, you know, if somebody wants one bouquet, we're happy to do it. And over and over and over again, I was sent the exact same bouquet, and we're like, what is going on? I had just come off my maternity leave. So I was like, what happened while I was out? But it was a white rose with baby's breath bouquet. I made this bouquet 6 times in a row when I came back to work. I said, what happened? Like, so we're in an area that is like way behind the trends, right? We are starting to see all of my weddings for next year, is like from a la carte, really teeny tiny things to my larger ones, you know, which again, a large wedding for me is like $10,000 to $15,000. I'm in a very small market. Okay. But they're looking for those artful things, but it's all white. And we're seeing that. So I'm like, okay, I think trends are moving too quickly now for us. It's a cycle. It's a wheel. So they're going to miss the mark. We can either say, oh, okay, they're actually ahead of the trend because this was here 6 months ago or 2 years ago. So you're spot on, Amy, like to try to make sense of it. And also, like, it's a trend because I say it is. Like, we make fun of that. We make fun of that. We know that's not the way it works. Nobody's like, I'm making this happen now. I mean, people do that and we make fun of it. I'm sorry.
It's being like
Very
that.
true.
Like, you're trying to make that happen.
In actuality, white being a recession indicator, that joke, like it's not wrong. I mean, you know, times are hard out there. And so when you look at, you know, manufacturing and again, capitalism, companies needing to make money, you know, but my God, I mean, how expensive is a Playa Blanca going to get this year? Like, I don't know that I can take it. We're already up to like almost $3 a stem for a standard. Like,
that's a whole nother conversation.
We're going to come back and talk about that one.
Yeah.
What used to be like, if you had a budget bride or a budget client, this is like, okay, I can do this for you. Let's choose less color. Let's choose, just lean into the more white and green. And that's not going to be the case this year, you know, and white product is going to be scarce too. So I don't think that it's like, while we're maybe not taken into consideration and like talking about its relevance, you know, in some ways we are greatly affected by these things. I do remember, I will tell you, the first time that the Pantone color came onto my radar really was, I'm going to say this is somewhere between 2012, 2015. It was some year, my early years of owning my own shop. But I, you know, was being scrappy and I would go on Accent Decor and just shop the sales because I'm like, okay, that's all I can afford. And they had on these closeouts, these cubes that everybody told me it was a god-awful shade of mauve. And that's why they were on sale, because Accent Decor had made a ton of these and then couldn't sell them. So I was like, I'm buying heavy in this trend. I just come back from a Teleflora class with Hitomi that was called Trendsetter. This is 2013, actually. So now I do know the year. And I was like, I'm buying heavy in this trend because I believe in it. And wouldn't you know, that December, that was the year. And I don't remember what they called it, but everybody was like, that's mauve. That's mauve.
Rose quartz? I think it was rose quartz.
It wasn't rose quartz. It was like, oh shoot, I'm not gonna be able to remember it. Anyway, but it was, and I was like, oh my God, now I can sell this. Now I can look like I'm ahead of the curve. I was like, I knew it. I believed in it. And that was and so ever since then, I have been very excited about the Pantone color. So you know what? I'm just going to take this as a reset and say, this is a leveling field for designers. If everybody's using the same palette, if everybody's using, let's see who can do more with, kind of this.
Yeah. Jodi, I have a question for you from working with Design Master, because obviously they are a color company. Does Pantone Color of the Year affect what they do, or do they ignore that? It's marketing hype for whatever, and they just do their own thing, or does it affect what they do?
Gretchen and I've worked closely for years, and so the conversation that our takeaway was, we don't make the rules, we're just aware of them. And so in that awareness, what is in the SKUs, what is in the colors that they have, because it's a color tool. You'll notice they don't call it a spray paint. It is a color tool.
Right.
So how do you use that tool to expand, to just to create interest and to elevate it? I like to say that Design Master is cosmetics for flowers. So it takes what's already good and makes it better. And so I just think it's cosmetics. It can hide flaws. It can do all these different things, but they don't do anything different because it costs a lot of money to bring a color into production. And I was at the table, and I was in those conversations, very intimate conversations, when we're deciding they're deciding, I'm just defending or presenting information. Why should this color get to live in a can? How is this color going to help someone?
Right.
How is it going to help them? And so that was the conversation. We had to defend why. And say this should be in a can. And our focus is, of course, the florist, the floral industry. It's a craft and floral paint. And so that was always the focus, is how can we help them with profitability? How can we help them solve problems? How can we help them be more creative? How can we help them with their carbon footprint, that they don't have to order a bunch more, that they can just spray one or two things and they don't have to order all this, or this is in decline and they can spray it and make it look really cool and still sell it instead of throwing it away. So there's a lot of merit to how do we show up, or I say I'm not we anymore. I do stuff with them on, whatever, an as needed basis. Right. But how do you help a florist with this product and expand it? So after this happened this year, it's really funny. I said to Gretchen, I said, well, hey, guess what? You've got 2 SKUs of white to sell. You've got gloss and you've got flat. She's like, oh, that's good. I'm going to use that. I said, take it, drive it like you stole it. But I was still look at it through that lens, because that was a part of my life consistently since 2006. So you can take the girl out of the color, but you can't take the color out of the girl, or whatever. So that was my takeaway, is that there are 2 SKUs of flat and gloss. Go crazy. So that was, to answer your question, Yvonne, that they didn't, I don't know. It's like you said, Amy, you said we're not at the table, and Abby said the same thing, but we don't make the rules, we're just aware of them. So how do we interpret them for our clients, for our circle of influence, for what we bring to florists, to designers, to artists, to whatever medium you work in. So it's the thing is, you don't do anything any different. You just figure out, how am I going to position myself? How do I analyze and position myself accordingly? And not necessarily to get on the bandwagon and throw confetti and go, yay. It's just, you have to, as a professional, have an awareness that, yes, this is the color of the year. And figure out and figure out what that means for you. I don't make the rules. I'm just aware of them. Okay. So what does that mean?
I think,
I like that.
Something to just, be a little, not controversial, but to maybe inspire some artists and designers here is that I think for most of us, color is what we're excited about when we design, and that's how, like, when I go to my cooler, or I'm doing an order, or I'm asking a client, like, color is always what we start with, right? But a lot of us hide behind pretty palettes, and a lot of newer designers who maybe don't have technical skills can really make a name for themselves by being good with color, being, having access to really interesting product with, blends and tonal nuances. Somebody asked, because I was talking to Sue McCleary about it. They were like, "Oh, you must love this because she always designs in white." And she's like, "I don't love white." She's like, "I do that so that you can see the form of it. Like, that's why, because I'm an educator, that's why I use white flowers." But that's exactly it. Is like, when you look at her pieces, you are always, at least for me, I'm in awe of the form and the structure. And I think that when designers, there are so many that I think of that when I look at their pieces and I'm so moved by them. Joseph Massey is another one. Like, when I saw stacked forms of white dahlias, I'm like, damn, he can design. And there's like nowhere for bad design to hide in there. So I think, yeah, sure, a lot of us can like do a roundy moundy in white and it'll be fine. And this is going to be like good in some ways for the DIYers. What I mean by it, like leveling the playing field, is I think a lot of really technically excellent designers are going to rise to the top when they lean into this, and we can really see what their design aesthetic is when it's stripped away and pared back to just white.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Exactly. Spot on.
Yeah. I'm curious, do you guys have customers that come in and be like, for an event, I want to lean into the Pantone color of the year? Does that even happen? No. Yeah, because they probably don't even pay attention to that, right? Like brides and clients, and they don't know, right? We're so like in our own bubble.
I mean, I do interior design too, so it does come into the conversations with interior design because it's a different application. So actually, it does come into those conversations, not as much as you might think. But having been in the floral industry and having a brick and mortar store for years, and being an interior designer now, it does happen more in contrast. And this has been interesting too. I think the backlash from the floral community is exactly what Abby and Amy have alluded to, that brides come in and they're like, I want white. And we're sick of that. Like when a bride would come in and go, I want to do purple, or I want to do whatever, something, I want orange and green. We were like, yes, we would get so excited because a bride chose color. And so here florists are, having to work with a budget, with a bride, with a product where the margins are thin. And then I want a white wedding. And we're like, oh, like Glenn Close and the Devil Wears Product groundbreaking, it's like, okay. So I think the backlash in the floral community has been brutal because our hands are so tied with our margins, with these choices, with trying to guide clients, brides, everybody. And they're like, oh, a white wedding. And we're like, oh, that would be so beautiful. Classic elegance. And then you're just like, could we please have some color? So I think that's why it's been kind of gnarly in the floral community. That's one of the reasons.
For Amy, for those who are working with white, and you mentioned the different shades, is there any tips that you want to give on when designers are working with white in their designs?
Yes. There are so many things.
Yeah, in a couple of minutes, so that way I
Yeah,
have
I'll make it
time for
short.
my last question too.
You got it. Yeah, I actually have notes prepared, so I will just like run through these really quickly. But
Perfect.
working with white and jewel tones in particular can look really disjointed. This is a common problem. You had asked what was, the issue with what is one of the issues with white.
Right.
And so working with bridge tones, bringing in variegated foliages and bicolor flowers is critical when working with white. Using a bridge visually to cross white into other flowers helps things visually blend. And so Mariposa carnation is a go-to of mine. There are inexpensive bridge flowers out there. Even adding one or two can help white blend into other palettes. So step one, pay attention to that. Number two is using proportion is critical. So white is, I think, actually very visually dominant. It's the first thing our eye travels to because it's often the lightest thing in a palette in floral design. So knowing how to balance that correctly, paying attention to if there's white in the container, bridging that up and putting white into the actual flower arrangement is really important in keeping some of that visual balance. Grouping, number three, grouping is key. So oftentimes I think a big mistake that designers make with whites is that they sort of pepper them throughout a palette. And grouping color is the most effective way to create dominance in an arrangement, to create impact, visual impact. And so grouping your whites but terracing them is really important. If you have them all in the same plane, it just becomes this sort of patch of disinterest. And being able to add different textures to that is critical when using white. So looking at the Mayesh library, going to white and cream, and scouring. I actually have made an entire list of my favorites that I'm happy to send you because there are some very interesting, fairly inexpensive white flowers. One that comes to mind is this series of small mini carnations. It's called Star Snow Ticino. Or the Dianthus Comfly or Solomio. These whites are really interesting in breaking up white palettes because they're small and they're not your traditional round head of a mini carn. They're sort of flat-headed or star-shaped, and these little forms can help break up a white palette in a really, really important way. Those are my top tips. There's obviously a lot more, but lastly, paying attention to temperature. If a client comes to you and says they love white, it's really important you understand the difference between warm and cool whites. If a client is bringing you they want a beautiful, clean white wedding, and you provide all warm whites, they are going to think that those whites might look yellow, and that can actually lead to like a lawsuit, which has happened before. So it's critical that we understand the difference between cool and warm when you're going to order flowers. There is a Mayesh resource I created in my own course that's inspired off the Mayesh library called literally the White Temperature Flower Guide, where there is 50 flowers broken down by cool and warm whites. And I made this long ago, but just to throw that out there, there is a distinct difference. So go pay attention when you're choosing white, making sure that you understand the difference and that you're ordering the correct temperature of white. So those are all of my top tips.
Great tips. I love it. Thank you. Anyone else have any tips that they were thinking about while Amy was talking?
No, but I'm curious, do you like to mix warm and cool whites together? Do you think that's a good idea? Like if a bride isn't really sure, like if you ask her, okay, is your dress more of an ivory or is it creamy or is it white? And like she knows the answer. And she wants it to like match her dress, or she wants to look good and have all white, no greenery. What is your recommendation? Do you like to mix the temperatures?
I think mixing is actually really important in creating visual balance. So 80-20 is generally the rule of thumb with temperature mixing that I have seen and observed is most effective. So if her dress is, and again, this is a longer conversation about proportion, but if her dress is going to probably be the most dominant thing there, so I would be paying attention to potentially doing more cool and adding 20% of warm into that palette so that it's bridging what her dress is, but there's still contrast. The cool whites will contrast against her warm white dress. If it's a cool white dress, again, she may want cool white flowers because in her mind, that's purity, right? Cool white is the pure virginal whites, and it's
Right.
like warm might look dirty to her, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be really careful
I'm
about
a dirty white kind of
I'm a
girl.
dirty, you are a dirty white.
Nothing cool white about this girl.
I love it. You guys are amazing. Okay, so we're gonna pretend that we are on Pantone's committee choosing this 2027 color because Pantone, you should hire us, man. Really. I want to know what would you pick and why, and what does the floral industry actually need right now in terms of color? Who wants to go first?
I will. I want my orange. I want a blaze orange, problematic, like, wow, that's bearish, and I don't really know that, like, it's turning my stomach a little bit. It's so bright orange.
Like construction level high vis orange.
Yes. I wish you could see my chairs that I have in here. I have like mid-century modern orange plastic chairs with a white, like tulip table. Like I want orange.
I love it. All right.
No, that's too pretty of an orange. I want uglier. I want uglier than that, Amy. Right.
She's going toward the neon colors, toward the bright. No, none of the muddy pastels. No. We're in it. No moody, muddy, cloudy here. We are pure chroma, baby.
Yes. Jodi, what color would you pick?
I'm going to say green. I mean, I know it's white noise, but dang it, my heart is for flowers and for the florists, and everything that we work with comes on a stem that's green. It presents color beautifully. I think it's a neutral. Green is my favorite color, so maybe it's some nepotism here. But doggone it, I think greenery is beautiful. I think it's grounding when you look at the elemental colors of, earth, water, fire, all of those things. Well, most of the earth is blue water, but there's an awful lot of green. And, and one of the comments, if we're going to be all woo-woo color therapists, everybody says touch grass. So that's my touch grass. Green. Green. Okay. And it's not green. I don't want the neon side of green, the yellow side of green. And I don't want green that's like basil in decline, but I don't want Kelly green either. But I'm wanting more between the Kelly green, the Crayola 8 green, and basil, like in there, like maybe spruce or something.
All right.
Perhaps.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Amy, how about you?
Yeah, so I actually looked back to see when green was last used because I also was leaning towards a mossy green.
Yes.
So turquoise was 2010, emerald was 2013, and yellow green was 2017. So I feel like we are more than due for some moss. I would love a moss green. I think you can do a yellow, you can do a brown. Those yellow brown undertones bridge and blend with everything. And so selfishly, moss green for me feels like nature. It feels like an actual reset. And I just would love that. If I was really hoping it would be yellow last year, selfishly, I just want to see yellow everywhere in flowers. I don't love yellow as a color in general, but yellow in flowers for me is just so underutilized. And so I was banking with the trends I saw in floral. I'm like, maybe, just maybe. And we just couldn't get it there. We couldn't get it over the line.
What about a Mayesh green? I'm looking at the logo.
Maybe Mayesh should have their own color of the year. You should do it yourself. Right?
We'll put together our own panel. That would be fun, right?
What do you want, Yvonne?
Yes.
I mean, I go with what I decorate my Christmas tree with. And this year everyone was going into like pinks, right? And I've had a pink tree for a very long time. I have girls. I'm a very girly girl. I've like, if you guys haven't seen like the other wall in my office, it's covered in big pink peonies. I love pink. But then everyone was starting to do pink, and then I didn't want to do pink anymore. So I went the green route. So I just bought a new couch, and it's like this mossy green color. And I was like,
Yay!
that is going to be my tree. So I got like mossy green velvety ribbons. All my ornaments reflect. I had like very dark green with the mossy green. I had lots of different colors, a little bit of brown in there too. And then just mixed with my gold and silver stuff and a few white things. But yeah, I'm a green girl right now. So
You're ahead of the trend. You're ahead of the trend. Let's do it,
I
man.
mean, what can I say?
I love green.
Is she behind or ahead? We
I don't know.
lost the plot.
I think she's ahead. I love all the green. I love all greens.
I know.
If you saw my closet hangs by color.
Me too.
So my closet is color blocked.
Yes.
So, and there's a significant after black, probably then I have navy, and then my next most color is green.
Yeah.
So
I'm loving green right this moment. So yeah, I painted a wall in my kitchen and it looks amazing. So, I went all in.
I love it.
And my team too, they were team green. So there was another company, I was trying to look it up while we were talking, and I cannot multitask when I'm doing this. But there was another company that puts out a color of the year. It's not Benjamin Moore. It was someone else. And it was like a very beautiful teal green. And it was gorgeous. So even that would be amazing. So yeah.
I will say, even though I love orange, I bought heavy in this trend. I was like, we're doing teal green. That's what I picked over the summer, that I was like, I think we're doing rich emeralds. And so
yeah. I love it. Yeah. I love it. This was so much fun, you guys. Thank you so much for coming on and being my inaugural episode for the Florist Table. This was amazing. Thank you, guys. Any last thoughts that you want to share about Pantone Color of the Year Cloud Dancer?
No, but do you have a dog?
I do. Can you hear her snoring a little bit?
I put it in the chat because I was like, I don't want you to have to go edit this later. But I was like,
no.
So I put it in the private chat, like, hey.
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention to that. Yes, my dog is snoring.
I was hearing it, and I'm like, she's gonna. And then you moved. I thought she knows, and then I thought she doesn't know, and I didn't want to say anything in our thing because I want you to have to edit it out. But I'm like, she's gonna have to edit it out. So then I put in the private chat, hey.
Yeah. No.
Is your dog?
This is how your dog feels about Pantone Color of the Year.
This is how everyone feels about Pantone Color of the Year. It's very.
Well, we have to make your dog. You have to make a little icon for him, asleep, and put him in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you're going to spin this. Is that we just have a picture of the dog sleeping, and we put dog's name, and then then that just is the story
of the part of the Florist.
Like we planned it that
but
way.
Also, anyone that listens consistently to this podcast knows that Penelope is in my office at all times, and she's either
Penelope is
right underneath me or right next to me, and she sleeps. And she's a bulldog, so she snores.
She's like a bulldog when she sleeps. I was like, poor little Penelope's.
Give her a little square and put Penelope and have a picture of her sleeping. And then you don't have to, then you're like, and Penelope doesn't like the color either. And then you can write off your dog. Because it's a tax write-off.
I'll send that to Mayesh.
So you're welcome. We're writing, the dog is on the payroll. The dog has a 401k.
It's just, she's part of this thing. So, I mean.
Absolutely. And she thinks it's a total snore. So give her a little thing like us. Make room and put her in here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to that. I usually see that, but I did not see that this
I'm
time.
not offended, but I just didn't want you to listen later and go, oh my gosh, you can hear the dog. Why didn't somebody tell me? So I was trying to do it discreetly.
No, so anyone that's new to this podcast, Penelope is always a part of them, pretty much. So, she's my cute little snoozing bulldog that's sitting right next to me, and she has her head up, so it's not as loud as it normally is. She's a loud girl.
Penelope, we love you. We love you, Penelope.
She is a cutie pie. I wish I could. I feel bad waking her up, but she's very cute.
Don't wake her up. She's
the best. Anyhow, thank you guys so much. This was amazing. You guys were hilarious, as I knew you would be, and insightful, and just thank you for sharing your insights and being real with us. I love that.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thanks for asking. It was an honor and a privilege, always, always.
Of course, of course. So I'm wrapping it up, guys. What a conversation, from warm whites versus cool whites to plain toast for breakfast. Whether Cloud Dancer inspires you or leaves you underwhelmed, I think we can all agree that Amy, Jodi, and Abby brought some much needed perspective to the table today. Thank you to all three of you for being here, for sharing your expertise, and for being a part of this first episode under our new name. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us at the Florist table. This is exactly what we envisioned: real conversations with people who understand this work, who challenge the status quo, and don't you guys do that very, very well, and who aren't afraid to be honest about what's working and what's not in our industry. We've got more conversations coming your way in 2026, so make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if today's episode sparked your thoughts, whether you're Team Cloud Dancer or Team Deconstructed Water, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Yvonne Ashton. Keep making beautiful things, and we will see you at the table soon. Bye, everyone.